Welcome to another Walking the Land with a Regenerative Farmer, where we walk the land with a farmer and explore regeneration. Today we have the pleasure to walk the land with Andres Jara, just outside Amsterdam, the Netherlands. A market garden which is really pushing the boundaries of what success means. Financially, quality of life, quality of products, and of course the health of the soil. Now join us on the walk.
Welcome to another episode of Walking the Land with a Regenerative Farmer. Today, as we say in Dutch, under the smoke of Amsterdam, and you can actually hear one of the airplanes passing over, but we're not going to get distracted by that. We also have an orchestra of amazing birds behind us and in front of us, and we're going to see a tiny farm. By all means, it's only an acre. It's 0.4 hectares, and in many statistics, it won't even classify as a farm, but it's a very, very successful market garden, and I'm very happy to have Andres here with us today. So Andres, please join us and take us on a tour of your amazing property. I mean, you're renting it, but to start with the personal question we always love to ask, how did you end up in the outskirts of Amsterdam and started farming this tiny plot of paradise?
Yeah, well, thank you for coming and also for the invitation to be here and record. It's actually quite interesting how the whole thing started. We came here around 6 years ago. We didn't start the farm, but we took over. So the farm is 7 years old, and we have been doing it now for 6 years. This project actually brought me to the Netherlands. So it's something like if you had asked me 10 years, 15 years ago, or told me, you're going to be farming in the Netherlands, I actually would be like, yeah, right. But now here I am in the sixth season, feeding roughly 650 people every week with the most freshest local and regenerative practices vegetables. So yeah, we have 0.4 hectares. We grow more than 60 different vegetables.
60, wow.
Yeah, 15 herbs and 10 edible flowers. We put flowers everywhere because we understood that the more pollinators we have, the better it is.
So, I mean, we can see the results of the super wet spring.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky with the weather today.
Yeah, it's actually...
It's very pleasant. So, biodiversity, strip lane, when you come in, what do you see? Like the first meters you come in, there's a polytunnel, then there's a farm shop. How did this come about, and what do we see here on the right?
So when you enter the farm, then the first thing you see the polytunnel, and then behind out there is a ton of hay. We got them because we wanted to actually get a lot of mulch organically, but it was almost impossible to get in the Netherlands, so we shipped it from France.
Wow!
And
talking about the crazy agriculture system. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so just to tell you a little bit fast about it, the minimum order was 35 bale. Every bale is 400 kilos.
Wow.
So now we have a lot.
Okay, yeah.
In the other side, we have actually our market stand is honest, trust-based market stand. So we don't have people working or like counting, or the only thing we have is just like someone just filling when an article is going off or like finishing. So we have a lot of seedlings, a lot of vegetables, products. One of our co-founders also makes a ceramic from clay. And then you can just come. It's open and available from Monday to Friday with a smaller selection. And then on Saturday, we pack it up. And also because if it's good weather, people just come and they would like to actually do the groceries. Behind us, there is another organic shop, but it's becoming too crowded. So people are just like the ones that actually want. So the success of one is like...
Which is interesting because that competition piece is a fear. I think I don't know. Like you don't want these regenerative farms on their little islands, we're getting philosophical immediately, to start competing with each other for the same share of customer and then somehow ending up not changing the food system. So that overflow is nice, but of course you want, how do you, like we talked before, or like we talked and we'll cover the economic side of things, like how do you make this accessible, not just for the happy few that can come here on a Saturday on their bike and with their children and all being live in La La Land, but how do we make this normal for many?
And actually, it's really interesting because in the summer, like midsummer, beginning of fall, there is a lot of Turkish families coming, looking for chilies, aubergines, and that's like really nice because we know that they will come, and now in the 6th year doing this, so we save also things for them. And they're looking for like, I can have chilies, can I have aubergines, tomatoes, I would like to buy like 6 kilos. And we like to ask them, so what are you going to do? So it's also like converging more like a...
How did they find out?
They just come and walk.
Word spread.
Yeah. And then in that aspect, it's quite interesting also to have like this diversity in people as well. That is just not the usual customers that comes with the bikes and the kids and everything.
We love them. I'm making fun of them, but it's the first mover maybe that has the time, the mental space, and the money to do things. But if we get stuck there, this is going to be another elitist hobby, and we should definitely.
And then just to share with you, like just some numbers quite fast. This is now we're also selling some other products from our neighbors. So. Little margins. We're really not like, oh, I need 50%. Nah, I just like 5-10% is more than okay. But
it's nice to have it.
Yeah, of course. And then this small markets can make around 5 to 6K a year without really doing nothing.
We do something. And then, of course, the question everybody asks, how much do you lose in terms of people not paying, or do they overpay? Do you have any clue on that?
That's actually something that how I personally choose to say it is like, if you actually cannot afford it, then just go for it.
Yeah.
Then it's like, that's a really interesting one. I really don't feel that actually we have lost a lot of things. But if something disappear, and we haven't had, sometimes we have a small jar of coins. Sometimes we have found in that jar 100 years in bills of 5, 10s, 20s, and we're just like, oh. Holy cow! We have maybe we'll just put it in the box.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to have this, and then if someone takes something, then it's also, let's say, you give it.
Yeah. It's the price to pay to the universe.
Exactly.
And I see some jars. With your name on it or your surname.
Yeah.
What are those?
So this is actually a crazy project that started 3.5 years ago in the lockdown of the Horeca. I saw my colleagues and neighbors around here really having a lot of challenges because sales channels were completely gone.
Restaurants closed. They lost their merit. Yeah.
And then you cannot say to a plant listen, don't give me more tomatillos, don't give me more chilies, because they just continue. So I thought okay, how can we actually do something together to add value, to extend shelf life, and to offer something with food that I would like to eat, because this is something I would like to eat this kind of products. I would like to, it's also the South American flavors, but with Dutch ingredients. So just also to showcase that eating, let's say, exotic flavors, you don't have to import things. It's also a little bit of my philosophy of life. I'm not against importing, exporting, and everything. I just I think that is a nice project to showcase that.
Yeah. So what are they? I see two.
So one is tomatillo sauce. So it's a really Mesoamerican flavor. No, tomatillo is a green tomato that is more family of the physalis. It's more related to the physalis or to lampion than to the actual tomato. It will never go red. And it has,
so you can wait forever, but
it will go or yellow or purple or light green, depending on the variety. And then it's used for sauces, and you can burn it, or you can eat it raw, or you can blitz it with onion, lemon, and you have a really fresh flavor, and just it really goes really good with cheese. The other one is actually the recipe of my grandmother. It's actually our bestseller. Just 5 ingredients: onion, tomatoes, chilies, olive oil, vinegar.
That's it.
You South American style of cooking, just burn everything, charred. and then you have a wonderful flavor, and then you bind it with the oil. We can try later.
Sounds amazing. We're gonna try later. Let's walk. Where do we go?
Okay, so we are now in the
Community area.
yeah
Hammock.
community area.
A lot of small plants.
Yes, so this is where all the lunch and all the like seedlings also come here, like to harden up. So it's quite interesting because we do 55% of our own seedlings.
Yeah, I was gonna say how difficult it is to get. Is it to?
It's quite difficult. Like you have always John Herius, and it's great because they can, you can buy plants.
Which is a company, yeah.
Yeah, it's a nursery, but it's what we don't love is that it's a catalog. So like certain varieties you cannot really grow. So that what we like is about the fact that we are able to grow the varieties that we feel like, and then
from seed. Yeah,
and also we learned that different plants need different temperatures, different conditions in order to sprout. Some of them like it warm, some of them like it a little bit colder. So
on this 1 acre, you're also doing a lot of seed growing.
Yeah, actually, let's go to the greenhouse and have a look.
Just to make it more complex. And
so this is a germination chamber.
I just passed by it by accident, but it's okay. Yeah.
What are we looking at? Okay, so actually this is our germination chamber. Before it was a fermentation chamber for making kombucha. So it's funny because friend mine was doing kombucha, and then her production just grew so much, and then she was just needed to get rid of it, and then they were going to destroy it. And then I was like, no, guys, it's already all insulated, it's already all done properly. So we just took it, and now it's our germination chamber. So it's
this is where it all starts.
Yeah. So if you put your hand in, you have a heated cable, and I think now it's there is it's 18 degrees, but it's not really like heating.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we put so this is broccoli, so it's brassica, so most likely in 3-4 days it's going to be up. And then here when you can just put I think more than 20 trays. Once we started actually doing this, our germination rate went up to 95 to 98%.
Can you believe?
Because we were doing this, and our sprouting average percentage was 70. And then you have
significant.
You have if you have let's say
70 means you missed this.
Yeah, exactly. So then if you lose this in every tray, every 3 trays you lose 1 tray. So you have a lot of empty space in the germination chamber.
And a lot of time.
Yeah. So now, with this, there is the heated cable, as you can see here. And then behind you have a thermostat, like a small computer, and you just select the temperature. So also this other part, well, as you know, we are in an Amsterdam small space, so everything has to be in wheels and movable, because if not, it's just it's actually the best way to grow.
So vermicompost.
Yep. So, for example, this is Spitzkool.
Wow.
And then these are, what is this actually? Deal. So this is one of the things that this is the physalis.
And so how did you, there are no manuals, I'm imagining, but small scale in this context and climate, how difficult were the first years? Learning, or is there, with your co-founders, did you have, because you said we knew how to grow food, and so we want to do that here, how much of a learning curve it was in the first year?
It was a lot. Now we, being honest, we experiment less because we have bigger members, numbers. So we still like to have this the chance to experiment, but then the chance of failure have to be less.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit.
Because we have 35 at the beginning. Yeah.
And then, when we started, we didn't have germination chambers. We didn't have these denser carros. We didn't have the best wave position of the sun. We just started.
Yeah.
So fortunately, with this big company nursery, that you can just order things. But then we also thought, like, at the end of the day, if you, nothing against farmers that buy the seedlings already this size, but I think like I feel a little bit that you are like babysitting plants that are already certain size till
maturity.
Exactly. And then what I think it's, at least personally, what we want to learn is how to go from seed to consumer
To plate.
Yeah, exactly.
And I asked this question to Jeroen as well, where we filmed and we recorded there. Like, when you started, how much did you think you knew? Like, did you have an understand, like a grasp of the complexity? And now, 6 years in, how much do you now feel you know?
I thought I knew a lot. And then and then I did it, like, holy cow, then I really don't know anything. Well, I did some things, but it's just like the learning curve up is just like, wow, this is how many things I have learned in the past 3 years. Something like composting. At least I can tell you, just for this example, like when we were doing our own compost is way richer in the nutrients than the ones that we buy. We are not able to do all the compost that we need, space-wise. But then it's just like we were really worried that it was going to be very little, a lot of work, and bigger volumes of mass. It will be more challenging. But actually, it was just like, no, the more mass you have, the more heat you generate, the faster you actually decompose. Makes a lot of sense. But in the theoretical aspect of the thinking, you're just like, whoa, how is it going to do this? Exactly. And then now we exchange our compost system that we're going to see later. And we just producing way more compost than before. And we also make analysis and everything. And we have realized that one of the microorganisms that we like the most is the 2 top predators. Don't remember the names right now, but
top predators in your soil, yeah.
And our compost is the one that have the most.
Wow.
So it's just a really great way to incorporate them into our system just by doing our compost.
Yeah, because in terms of soils, what did you find here? You said they already started the year before. What is missing? What do you need? Are there easy soils? Like, what's the situation on the outskirts of Amsterdam?
Well, here is heavy clay, and you have some patches in which is actually red clay, so it's like really oxidized, and then you have also another one that is the blue clay. It's like where it's really like a waterlogged. Yeah. And here in this part is just they just fill it up, and then since we started, we have actually increased, like in the analysis that we have done, by 3.4 organic matter, but we just add compost, and by doing no tillage, so we just cut in the root level, soil level, sorry, and then we add compost on top, and then like this way we have seen that actually our soil is being able to catch more water and to drain water when like now it's excess, and you can really see sometimes in the path that it's really wet and leads to like water ponds, but in the beds it's actually quite we have also installed drainage just to be honest in some parts, and also in plot 10 we're going to show it to you later. We had some problems last year in which nothing was growing, and we had to go and do some work with
because the roots basically didn't go down at all, completely compacted. Wow. Let's go and have a look.
No, it still needs to be.
Okay.
It's not finished yet.
But it looks very cool.
Yeah, so this actually, it's a project that we did 2 weeks ago. We always wanted to have a beautiful space like this. So this is a work in progress. So we have the tent now here because we need to protect the oven, but then this is going to be roof. And due to the rules of city of Amsterdam, we actually have found a way in which we can put a roof. But because 3 sides are open, so it's not a permanent.
It's not a building. Yeah,
It's not a building. So
as always, work with your legislation and your
exactly. So then this is going to be an outdoor kitchen. So this is the pizza oven. This is going to be the surface. So it's a little bit messy right now because you need to actually to disorganize in order to organize and build. And then we have been doing a lot of different activities with and programs with ROC, for example, Hotel de School.
Students working that are working in the restaurant scene, in the hotels, etc., are gonna work. And
so we have
these bags for food making. Yeah, that's and your background as a chef.
Exactly. So like we offered them like this possibility that then they do a class here. They come and the class is like a 5 hours lesson. They come with the professor. We do a garden tour. Then they taste and I play them and then actually learn how different flowers look. For example, a lot of them, they don't even know how the flower of an aubergine looks like. And actually you can eat it. But then it's just, and then after the tour, they divide it in groups. They make a plan, what they want to do, and they have 15 to 20 minutes to come with an idea. And then afterwards, they have 15 minutes to go and harvest what they need. Of course, we also have to be with them because quantity-wise, they can go a little bit crazy. I remember one guy, like, I need 6 aubergines. Like, no, you need 1. So, and then after that, they have 1.5 hours to cook. And then at the end of the class, they present their dishes to the class. And then they get evaluated with, a little bit of methodology or using things that they have not used yet or presentation. So it's actually quite interesting to bring the students and to work also with the next generation of chef or next generation of what is going to be farmers. We also have a lot of Warmondehof.
The biodiversity.
Exactly. So, and with them we have become quite popular because we're a young group of farmers.
Most of the biodynamic farmers, no offense, are in another age group. Yeah, that's if they go and do internships, etc.
We have a couple of rules here. It's we always have a warm lunch, and if you want to cook, you're more than welcome. And then if you don't want to, you always we give you 2 meals. Ideally, at the end of June, we would like to have this. Because also all the universities and all they start coming in September.
Yeah,
September and October is really intense. Tours, universities, events, and all these kind of things. That is also one of the parts that actually, in order to really have we have been focusing in order to bring more income to the farm, because then we can actually hire more people and work to develop new areas of the business. This is also something that...
How important is that tour piece for the business and for you? It's also a distraction, of course, but groups that come in, and people like us, but also people that come in and schools and 4 or 5 hours. That's...
Well, with the schools, we have a really good agreement, a really good deal. They're really happy, and also we work with them in different ways. Also, for example, with... ROC or Hotel de School, they also buy weekly membership. So it's they're also members of the CSA.
They're part of, yeah.
So we're really happy to be able to offer this space to actually work with them. And but depending of the group and depending of the intention of the group, we opt for welcoming everyone that wants to know a little bit more about regenerative agriculture, market gardening, and how food is grown. I think it's one of the things that we really enjoy is to share what we have built and the knowledge.
And this is more general, but what's the biggest surprise for people when they come here? Like you've had many people say walk the farm with you and with your colleagues. But what have been big surprises from people? Apart from the fact that you can eat the flower of certain plants, but okay, but like other...
The flavors. The flavors is just like, what is this thing that I'm eating? It's like, I actually used to supermarket flavors. And of course, also with other farmers, it's like the amount of intercropping that we do. Like at the very beginning, many farmers start coming to see how we were doing, and it's like, you guys are nuts. You guys are like, this is nuts. And it's like, then
what specifically then did they see that was out of there?
For example, is like we have over there where you see the DPs, we have beans and snipet and kohlrabi, and there's like the mentality of some farmers like one crop, that's it. Then maximum 2 crops. We put sometimes 5 crops. And
they're like, how do you pick those? Is there a methodology, or where do you go for? Because you also don't want to. Some crops might compete, some don't. Some really work together, the companion side. But there's a science behind it, or there's rules in the sense. Like you don't want to experiment too much. Like how do you figure that out?
Some we read and we do what what other people have done, but then it's also nice to be able to just break the preconception of like this doesn't work because someone tell you no, but the reasoning behind is like that is not really, it just doesn't work. So for example, we did the capuciners, that is the Dutch pea, with carrots and with beets, and with carrots it just doesn't work, but with beets like wonderful, like big, really big, beautiful beets. And sometimes
why nobody knows yet. We'll figure it out. Somebody will do research.
Exactly. Like I also have learned that I don't have to understand everything. There is also many things that we're doing, and then we have another colleague that she wants to know, so we come to her to these questions, and then she's really pretty like doing research. So also very interesting about what we have done. It's naturally, and we're really lucky that naturally every person has go into a different area of the business, and is what is needed.
How important is that group? Well, we can walk to the next, like that group, like assembly almost, because what you also see, especially in market gardens, but also in other places, like burnout and a couple that start something, and then after a year or two, I think you can write a book about that almost, like the amount of work that goes into this, because it's so difficult to figure out things in new places, new contexts. It doesn't always work well. You're with a bigger group, I think 5 or 6.
Yeah.
How did that come about? I mean, you all came from Polenz, from Bra, basically from the Slow Food University, like, because this is an SME, a small to medium sized company, and not just a 2 people operation or 1 person. How did that come about, and how important is that?
Well, I think one of the most beautiful thing about this, and we have seen so many people actually doing a couples doing a market garden, and then they start really enthusiastic, and after 2-3 years, you see them or they're doing this because they wanted to switch career because they burn out, and then after some years they feeling burnout again. So it's quite challenging, and what we have really enjoy and like of this is that we started 5, and one of our colleague left. He said like, guys, I love you, but
this is not me.
It is not me, exactly.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
you say that.
And then it's actually a great opportunity to be able to communicate this and to step out if you really feel like, and not just like, I have to stay because I have to stay. And then, if I'm honest with you, at the beginning, I miss him a lot because he was the MacGyver of the situation. So everything was broken and he was just fixing everything. So of course, one piece goes out, then you need to fill the space. And I have learned a lot in this process. So like everything, like in a farm, a lot of things breaks. So I also have realized that at this precise moment, my role is apart from like finance, marketing, and I'm the most outgoing of the team, also the South American spark.
And you're here, yeah.
Also, it's that everything runs smoothly, so people can do the operations, so everything just flows.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes depending how you see it, it's like can be very romantic or it can be very tedious.
Yeah,
depending on the day. But many things we are on a farm. We're outdoors. Things breaks, rot.
slugs.
Logs.
We
Exactly.
didn't talk about them yet, but
Like machines, breaks, maintenance, irrigation, blocks, cleaning. So it's a lot to and all the tubes are on the ground. So like to remember everything. We have a blueprint of what is everything, but still, it's quite.
And how challenging was it to start with 5? And then did you all have to earn like a living immediately from the first year, or how did that?
That's actually a great question. So the first year we were in 4 because one of our old colleagues was actually finishing a master's at Wageningen.
Which is an agriculture university in the Netherlands.
Yes.
So back.
And then we started the 4 of us, and we earned 0. Well, we put a lot of investment, and fortunately, we're growing food, so you're not going to starve.
But did you plan for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you budgeted.
Yeah, we budgeted for that, and then we did it part-time, so you can actually have a part-time job and be able to live in, if not one of the most expensive cities in Europe.
Yeah, if not, the world. Yeah.
So in that aspect, we just like, okay, let's do this. And then, to be honest, after the 3rd year, we paid ourselves back the investment so we thought more like, okay, we're not going to pay ourselves salary this first year, but we'd rather just reinvest what we can. So then, we knew that eventually that was going to happen. And then we're fortunately, with the other jobs that we had at the moment, we were just like able to live. And then we were growing food, and we were growing the same amount of, not the same amount of food, but a really good amount of food for 35 members at the first year. So we had a lot of food.
Yeah.
So in that aspect.
But it's interesting how fast, anyway, the soil changes, like you mentioned before, but also with Market Garden, a lot of extremely hard work, like everybody that I see going into that. But also one of the places, it seems like, but correct me if I'm wrong, where you are able to get a more than okay salary relatively quickly. If you're certain circumstances, but you pay, we don't have to share it, but an insane amount of money per acre here in terms of rent.
Yeah.
Still, with the number of people on the payroll, and still with the taxation we're in the Netherlands, you're able to pay yourself, and you're able to live in Amsterdam, etc. So when people say, yeah, this seems like a garden, but this is actually a company.
Yes.
And in a couple of years, like not only needed 20 years or 15 years, no, in 2-3 years, you're off and running, which says something about how far we got, like in terms of with vegetables. And
it's also
very intense. Like this is as intensive as you can get.
Yes.
But still.
Like I think in that aspect, it's like working with nature, really understanding what is the best way in which we can like create an ecosystem in which everything can thrive, from like vegetables, animals, and humans. So in that aspect, it's just like.
And when you say working with nature, it's one of those terms that everybody loves to use. Concrete example, like how do you? Because I've heard somebody, and I don't remember where, saying I'm using nature to do a lot of the expensive pieces. Like I'm working with and trying to hack in that way. Like a lot of the things that I would have to get outside inputs or labor or machinery that are very expensive. But how would you, when you say working with nature, what does it, to make it economically viable, what does it mean to you?
Okay, well, in that I can give you 2 examples.
Anyway, this is a free-flowing format. We can do 10.
In the whole of our property, we have a living hedge that is also protects us first from wind.
It is an issue. Not today. We're
not
really lucky for sound.
But then also the biodiversity. So we have 1,500 trees around the property, and all of them are doctor's varieties from the Netherlands, and also fruit trees. So we also get fruit from them, and then also create ecosystem for animals and for different insects. This year we don't have them because of we evaluate, but we used to have chickens in the outer part of the farm, and then they were just mowing everything, and then of course pecking and eating, and also fertilizing the outer parts. And then in winter, when we had the rest, we also just put them in the field there, so you don't have really to prepare beds. They are preparing the beds for you.
And what made you choose? Then we'll get to the other example. What made you choose not to run chickens this year?
This year it was just
because eggs are interesting.
Yeah, eggs are really interesting. Actually, like the majority of the people just came for the eggs. But then this year it was I think we were just reaching the limit of too much. And then because then last year we have 35 chickens, roosters, and then we know that they can really harm the soil. They can be really beneficial, but then we can also make a lot of damage
if you don't manage well.
Exactly. So we rotate them every 4th day in the outskirts of the plot, and then we have a chicken coop, a mobile, so we have a fencing because everything wants to eat chicken. Birds of prey, foxes, other humans, dogs. But then this year it was just, actually we are more than happy with it because it has been very challenging already, and to add another thing to the system this year would be like quite challenging.
Was it difficult to decide, as there have been such an integral part also of the sales or bringing people in, and animals on a farm changes something fundamentally, good and bad, like as a other living beings. Like, how difficult was that?
It was very difficult, very challenging, because you really connect with them. Just like, you're thinking about like, okay, let's say you're cleaning your cabbage, your Chinese cabbage, and then you have all this outer leaf, and it's like, I'm actually going to throw it to the chickens. And now it's like, I'm going to throw it to the compost. And it's like, you feel a little bit like, you can always give it to them. But I think this is also one of the years to really, we're trying different things. And, normally they say, don't change the winning team. But it's also important to see what else that we can do, or like not just to continue doing something because it has been working and it's safe.
Yeah.
If we think like that, we would have not built this because we were not thinking safely. Like, in this more like challenging.
And how did the CSA members respond? Or what, was it part of their boxes, or was it an extra thing people were buying?
No, that was an extra thing. So that was also a way to actually, because we deliver around 70% of our shares, and 30% people have to come and pick it up. Is the least, let's say, preferred place for people to come. So when you have eggs and you have like rhubarb here, or like some things there in the market garden, it's like incentivize them for like, okay, I'm going to get eggs, I'm going to get rhubarb, I'm going to get fruits, and so that's why it's just like for the people that come and pick up. It's also the spot that feel the slowest and the last, because it's like, the only spot that we have is the farm. Okay, sure. So, like,
what do you mean by that?
We have different pickup points in the city. So we work a lot with, and it's actually a really interesting way of how seeing things. We work mainly with or bakeries, or like neighborhood hubs, or like natural wine shops. And then at the beginning, we were like with 6 or so. Then at the beginning, when we approached them, it was more like, we would like to actually be a pickup point if you would like to participate in this. And it's like, okay, tell me the price of your box, and I want like 10% of the sales with these kind of things. And we were like, I think you're not really understanding. Let's put it in another way so actually you can see how we see it. We have a base of customers.
You
will have a flow of new customers every week for 30 weeks a year, that then they can become your customers. And eventually, when they send their neighbors or someone, more people will come, and then they realize, then you can just increase your customer base with this collaboration. And for example, 2 natural wine shops, they were like, yes, I want that, because then they really, really, really well. They have the box, and then they have the wine of the week
next to it.
and then most likely, yes, of course, they see the ingredients, they see the fruit, the vegetables, and they're like, this wine goes well with this, and a lot of people actually buy the wine.
It's fascinating because the wine world, where we're thinking about a wine series at some point, or the viticulture series, like it's such a different world than the food space. Like people will think for a long time about, okay, what am I going to pay this farmer extra, and or not extra, what I'm going to pay, what I think is fair. Like I probably put quite a bit of thought in it. Then they're at the natural wine shop, they pick up their box, and within half a second they pay 15 euros for a bottle.
Yeah.
And not even think about it anymore, which is perfectly fine. I'm not saying nothing against the natural wine, but how do we do that as well with food, like which objectively should be more important? But there's a lot to learn, I think but they did it really, really well, and they've seen the flow of people.
Yeah, and I also like what I really like about that is like to really make a collaboration that is not about money.
Yeah,
it's about something beyond that eventually will bring that, but it's not just the main thing. It's like you give me the 15% of the price of the thing. It's like
no.
Yeah, exactly.
And so those two, and then how long did it take to find others, or how did that conversation or went to get enough pickup points to cover?
Eventually, no, it was quite easy at the beginning. We started with 4, and then the more and more we got, actually people start asking us. It's like, I saw this shop, I saw your vegetables, and I saw the amount of people. I have a shop. I want to let's do this.
Yeah,
so it was just great.
Did they become customers as well?
Yeah.
The shop owners,
yeah,
because they already get it delivered.
So
anyway.
Yeah, of course, we have a restaurant that he was just like, so I want to be a pickup point. I want vegetables for my restaurant, and I want vegetables for my home. And I was like, sure,
club deal. Yeah, let's go.
Exactly. And then like he gets everything delivered, and if people come, don't like pickup point also have the rules.
Yeah.
So there are some pickup points that are a little bit more flexible, so they give you 1-2 days to pick up. Some pickup points are a little bit more strict. You don't come today, your box is mine.
We eat it. Yeah. Which fair. I mean,
of course,
that's part of the deal.
Because then, like, people can also get lazy. It's like, I have time tomorrow to pick it up, and then it's like,
no worry. We've seen that with we brought organic oranges from friends in Calabria in Italy, and then people leaving it at the pickup point, which were other friends, for way too long. And let's say oranges they go best in colder climate or colder storage. And of course, organic, not sprayed. So if one starts to go moldy, it spreads like wildfire. So people realized it was probably not good to leave them in a shop of 20 degrees for like a week.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find a lot anymore. But yeah, it's also lessons learned.
And then with this also, I started realizing that I had the conversation with the Spanish guy, and he made me realize where we're sitting at in the customer base. That people that really trust what we do, and then it just got me to think like, okay, how can we actually collaborate with other farmers to bring things that are not grown here? Then like I haven't followed the conversations, but then I saw the La Junquera, and I just want to bring almonds. And then like for them, if some,
Make it happen.
yeah, I will actually love that. So we have 200 customers, and even more if we put in the market stand. And then I think for them it would be more interesting to send a couple of hundreds of kilos instead of sending bags of 5 kilos to some people in Europe, like Northern Europe.
Yeah, and potentially you could even pre-sell it already, or at least have a good understanding of what you're going to sell. And so in terms of finance, did you raise any money? You're saying we planted 1,500 trees. That cost money the first year. You had an off-farm job. But like, how did you, as a company, finance this startup, basically?
Oh, okay, that's actually a really good question. We started...
Keep saying that. Thank you. Make me feel really good as an interviewer.
We started with private investment. 8,000 years. 5 people. So...
50K. Yeah.
50K roughly.
Which is still like mind-bogglingly low if you think about what other startups in other, like the
Yeah.
it's of course blood, sweat and tears you put in. kelp, not kelp? I'm curious. I'm gonna ask.
Oh,
I'm gonna ask you later about that. I see signs of kelp, not kelp.
yes, that's an experiment that we're doing with this company. It's called Kelp Blue.
Yeah. I think we're gonna interview them. Hadewig. No, how is she called?
I know the guy because
They raised quite a bit of money. It's a big company, right?
yeah, and one of the guys actually was our member. Now he's working there. And
So let's start. Like I saw at the beginning of this field, kelp, not kelp. But obviously you're not underwater growing kelp. And then we'll get back to the financing piece. I'm curious, but let's tackle the kelp part first.
so yeah, we have one of our ex-members. He became a member for 1 year, and then he came to volunteer several times with us. Then he went to Brazil to look for his regenerative path, agriculture, and then he was in Brazil, and then he came back, and then he started working with Renature and the whole thing that happened. And then he switched to Kelp Blue, and then he contacted us, and basically just like saying like, so guys, I'm working with Kelp Blue, and I would like to use your farm as a pilot to really see, because we have been working with different farms in Kenya, different scales, and it's just we would like to see it in a smaller scale to see how can we actually work together with other let's say garden farmers,
because they make a biostimulant from kelp, right?
Yeah. So they contact us and they said, okay, we need 5 beds, and then for them it was great because our plots, and that's actually something that I would like to tell you later. Our plots are normally 5 beds. So you have the control group, and then you have like the ones you add, so you can really see the difference. And then for them it was really crucial to really be able to have them next to each other, just because
So everything is the same,
exactly,
except the kelp.
exactly.
And so
And some we just
in the irrigation water, how do you add the stimulant? Do you get a bottle?
yeah, so it's a 1.5 liter bottle, and then with their help we made the calculation, and it's actually that bottle is good for 30 meters.
You do that when you plant or when in the...
Actually, it's 4 times in the lifespan of the crop. So we have done it already, I think, the 3rd time. And then, but it's funny because they actually came last week to visit us, and they said like, of course, the biostimulant works better when it's sunny. I was like, so
yeah, welcome to the world.
like, we didn't actually chose the best year to do this, but
and have you seen like visually differences or not?
not really, if I'm honest with you. But I'm still curious to see. Well, something that we have noticed is that the ones with kelp, they have more flowers.
Interesting.
At least the courgettes.
Yeah.
And then more male flowers. Well, you don't want just male flowers,
No,
but then the male flower is actually the one you eat.
you can feel it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Which makes it interesting.
exactly. And then we have already spoken with 2 Italian restaurants. They normally import flowers because it's an insane business. But one flower is like 170, 230 depending, and the lifetime is like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And
And that to be super fresh.
exactly. And then here with them, with us, they just get like, okay, just give me everything.
Wow.
And then they just stay good for like 4 or 5 days.
They stay longer.
Yeah.
And they are faster here anyway, so you have like double the time basically. It's crazy. And flavor-wise, where you cannot even compare, probably.
It's completely a different story.
So that would be an interesting kelp story. If that's the case, that's really the different. I mean, apart from soil life and plant health, etc., we're getting a beautiful frog concert in the background. Coming back to the financial piece, I think we cut it at, or we stopped and then we walked here at, like I said, it's a lot of money, but not a lot if you look at the bigger scheme of things in terms of finance and money around. What's your feeling there, like looking back now 6-7 years in? Like what you put in terms of time and money as well, and what you're now getting out? And
we have been really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And it so far has been worth. The investment actually was not really big. So like if things didn't work, it would have been like, we try.
Yeah.
Now it's like we see that we already like went over couple of times. So it's just great to see that this methodology of agriculture can actually make enough food for people and enough money for farmers to actually get a better salary wage and create a space in which people want to participate, be part, and as you're hearing right now, to have this beautiful concert of life. So in that is, I will do it again and again and again. But then to really see the economical aspect, we gave ourselves 4 years to get back the investment and just to share with you a little bit also how much we earned. So the first year it was 0. So the second year, €7 an hour.
€7.
Yeah. The third we did like 10 or 11. Fourth we did 13, 15, and now we're at 18, 19.
And then I have to ask how many hours, because the standard farmer does an insane amount of hours. Like, are you capping that as well? Because you're tracking time as well. Because you mentioned in the pricing scheme, like we calculate how much time it takes for a box, etc., which was already revolutionary because most people don't track time at all. So is that for a normal 36, 40 hours a week? Or are you going a bit over that?
The first year
was a bit more.
We just went over. Like, if we really make the calculation, we were like making like cents per hour. Like, but then it's also, we are in a system in which we do things because we need to live and we need to pay rent and we need to pay, we need the money. But we also saw it as an investment, and now we see the harvest of that investment. So to go like from 7 to 19 in amount of years is nothing. But if you put it in percentage, it's a peak that like companies would love to have.
This growth and scale. And you mentioned before, and I think we got to the second one, like how you work with nature. What was the second example you want?
So in the other plot in which we had Falco.
Falcon,
yeah. So we, like, from listening to your podcast and listening to other podcasts, it's like the best thing you can actually have in your farm is birds, and it's just like sounds of nature.
Specifically, I think birds of prey. Like they choose to be, because they can go anywhere. In general, birds they vote with their wings. If they choose to be with you, you're doing something.
You're doing something good. So then we have we put some houses, and let's say like bacons, and they were empty for 1.5 years. And now in the past 2 years, we are now have a family of them, and then we have also seen other birds. And then when the smaller ones have started, now you start seeing the bigger ones also coming. And then we have a challenge with the wolf, or like the moles, the blind ones that just make a lot of holes. And then what we see is like, where did I see it? For example, this one. I go. So it was not touching the root system. It was in the air, down. So they do a lot of this. So they just go, make a hole, and then the plant doesn't have soil to actually root.
Go, and that's it.
That's it. So
and
then you can really see it here in these like couple of meters. Then we had that challenge a lot.
But then birds show up.
Then these guys started to come, and you actually really see the decrease of those wolf and moles, because they are just there working. And it's wonderful because they don't get sick, they don't call holiday, they just you
have to provide for them, as in the circumstances for them to show up, in this case housing and of course prey. But it is, I think, underestimated how you can. It sounds like always this romantic story of then the birds of prey come in, and we know, like from the biggest little farm, the runner ducks come in and eat the snails. But if you do that properly, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and another one is in the majority of our beds at the beginning, we put a lot of edible flowers. We know that we want pollinators. And then the more pollinators you actually have, the better it is for specific crops. Like, for example, courgettes. The people really don't know that insect, bee, wasp, whatever, needs to go to a male, then gets pollen, and then goes to a female to actually a fruit to be able to reproduce. Then, like, imagine if we don't have bees. Imagine if we don't have insects. Like, you will have to do it manually. And then imagine you going...
Yeah, people do that. Yeah, but it's...
Yeah, people do it. But then it's just like...
manually going with like a little... What is it? A pencil of painting. And touch that. And instead, you have insects that obviously do that, but you need to have the insects.
So then we put a lot of flowers in front of the beds, somewhere in the middle, and in the greenhouses we put a lot of flowers, and they just get attracted. And the more you have, the more they pollinate, the more yield you will have. So it's like, it's just...
And like, how much is the fact that you're so close to Amsterdam, to a big city, neighbors, etc., like how much is that affecting this little island in terms of... But it's not an island, but a little piece of paradise. It feels like an island. We have water around with a lot of frogs. But how much does it influence, like pollution-wise, etc.? Do you worry, wonder?
Yeah, okay. So for that, we're very lucky because these canals that we have here, they're not connected to like the big ones in the city. So like you cannot arrive here by boat.
Okay.
So that's already a good start. Due to the heat, you have also a lot of like algae. So you have a lot of
algae blooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we also have put some carbs, so they eat the algae, and also because this kind of this algae just also clogs your. We also use the water from the canal, and then we analyze it. That is not like make the analysis that is not really harmful for you, and then so like we have good results. And we do.
Do you use the algae? Or something? Not yet. Yeah.
No, not yet. But then so for example, sometimes we have seen people coming to fish the carp, and the carp are like this big.
Wow.
So, and it's like, don't take all the carp.
Yeah.
Like don't take all the fish. But it's just like really nice to see how just by understanding and adding things to the ecosystem, it can just like work.
What are some missing pieces you would love to have here in a couple of years? I mean, the outside kitchen, semi permanent structure, but a roof there that's different than the tent. What are other missing pieces if you look around here and if you dream a bit with your eyes semi-closed to see?
Well, I think like, in Amsterdam, people are used to this like well done, beautiful. And I think in that aspect we have...
Where are you going with this? Well done, beautiful what? Restaurants, places, like...
No, like proper design, yeah.
Okay.
And I think we like it rustic. We like the like it's nothing bad with any of the lights of the styles. I think we like it to, it feels that it can get closer to the line of pretentious. Not saying that like, but it's just like it's a beautiful city. It's just like insane. I live here and I just still go around the canals and just like, but then it's like the opportunity of actually being able to have this rusticity in your space. It's actually what I feel that also makes it a little bit more romantic. Of course, I would like to have a little bit more better infrastructure because of the rules and all these things. Like if we want to make a new polytunnel, we need to like kind of hide it or like find a different way.
Yeah, semi-permanent or not. It's yeah.
And then for the future, I think I will like to own the space because here we have the neighbors. We have like like the possibility of expansion is very limited. So we have another location that is 3 kilometers away from here, and we got the opportunity to go to another location, but logistically, then you will have 3 farms, and then it's
exponentially way more complex.
And then, in the other location, like here, we have a walk-in fridge, washing station, and everything. Over there, we don't have, like, infrastructure is very, very little. And then in the third location, then it would have been installed, again, new computers, new irrigation. So it's like starting from scratch. Of course, the more you do it, the better you get at. But, if it's a sunny day, the pump it's not working, you are the pump master and you cannot split to go
3 places.
So we had the opportunity to actually get a third location, but we felt like, okay, bigger doesn't necessarily mean better. So that was also a realization in which, like, okay, actually we can just get better with the space we have. And then eventually if the opportunity comes within the complex to expand, I think that would be a great possibility.
And it's a question we always like to ask. Within the bigger food and ag system, or actually in general, if you had an objectively insane amount of money, let's say €1 billion, what would you do if you had to put that to work? I'm not looking for exact amounts, I'm looking for priorities. Would it be on the processing, on the land access, on seed varieties, whatever, drones? What would you focus on if you would be in charge of putting that to work? So you were taking off your farmer hat for a bit, but you are on the investor table. What would be your top priorities to put money to work?
Definitely land access and education, because I think there is a lot of curiosity, there is a lot of willingness to actually learn and make a change in the system, but there is not, like, unless you are born in a farm family or like farmer family, you're like you cannot really get X amount of money to actually buy something. And then, like, we also coming from a generation that is not making as much money as the past generations. So, like, to reach those numbers, it's like very, very challenging. And also, like, depending of if you get it from a bank, from a loan, or from investors, it's like, oh, I want the X10 return on investment, or like I want you get this 6% interest rate annually, and it's just like, I'm farming. So sometimes things might work. In our case, luckily have been working, but I would use a lot of money to buy land, educate farmers, and then something completely in the other side of the spectrum, give some money in places like South America to, like, get back land and give to indigenous communities that I think this knowledge that they have, it's something that we can learn a lot from it. So I would use some money to do this, of course, working with them so they can pay back, or because it's an investment. It's not like, okay, here's a lot of money, that's it. But then that pay back, then actually is some money to that, and this money actually can be like, okay, it's fine. So that is how I will.
And is that a similar lesson you would tell investors? Like, if you have a group here from, like, Amsterdam, from the south, where the financial heart is, let's say a group of bankers comes and visit, or a group of investors, which they might have, I don't know. But what would be, of course, they're excited, interested, they see a lot of things they've never seen before, they can taste things, they can smell things, they learn things about courgette flowers or zucchini flowers. But what would be the main seed you want to plant in their mind? What would be the main message you want them to take home, and preferably to their job the next day, to start looking at things differently if they are in control of wealth?
Oh, that's actually very interesting, because I would just take it away from the current system in which we are, and I will make it a little bit more in a different breeding space, because in right now society we want everything yesterday. You can get something in 10 minutes in an app with your thumb. In farming, that doesn't work. Like, if you want to try something else, you need a whole year. to try and write it down, because most likely you will forget. So if we take that time in and we just like put it like this in different aspects, like in that investment aspect, well, actually I think people will understand that working with nature, just like times are different. So the return on the investment, it cannot be, oh, now we have a
Lovely helicopter.
a lot is happening today.
Yeah. Neighbors mowing. Not so many airplanes until.
Yeah, actually, we're really.
You're not saying a word because they will come over every 3 minutes. But this one is definitely seeing the. This is just I think a tourist helicopter. Very new, isn't it? Let's go. You were at return of investment.
Yeah. So like in that line of thought, it's like, and then the majority of the times. And I have spoken with some investors, and I have also spoken with some great investors that is just like, I have made enough. You can give me 3%. And it's like, this is a little bit what you want, or the mentality what you want when you make, when you work with nature or with variables that are really difficult to control. Like, for example, if you make your market research, or you're like startup tech, that can grow. It's a completely different story. It's different cycles, it's different methodologies,
different speed, or even a restaurant is. But actually, funny enough, this is fast for farming. That's interesting. Like, it's not. I'm building an agroforestry system. It's going to take 7-8 years for the first hazelnuts to come. It's going to take extra, which you can plan for, sure. But it's a very different. Okay, so time would be your main message or seed. Think differently. It's not linear, it's circular. How do you...
Yeah,
that's very difficult, because in finance, it's an answer people have given before as well, of course. And like, how do you make long-term stuff that everybody sees makes sense, like a tree planted? Or how do you finance that, or how do you break that paradigm where it needs to be 3 months, quarterly results?
Yeah, exactly. And then like eventually, let's put it in the example of the hazelnuts. The hazelnut, the older the tree, the more hazelnuts you will get. It's just like simple. But eventually, for the first hazelnuts to come, you need some years.
And how do you fit that in the spreadsheet?
Exactly.
That's the challenge. And then the magic wand question I always like to ask: if you could change one thing overnight, so you're no longer in control of your investment fund, but you do have a magic power for one thing and one thing only, what would that be?
Connection with nature, I would say. Because once you really understand that, everything else in a particular way matters less. And then, like, it's not be really in the sense of like that, we are in the system that we have built, but we also are in a way in a life that like we're working like with nature as well, no? So, and we have actually, one of the things I really like about Amsterdam is that it offers you a lot, but also the amount of nature around you is like, it should sometimes feel like I want to go out. So that thing of like, we need the city and the nature.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this is like more what I mean in that sense of like this reconnection of like having this awareness of, you go to buy something and you don't go to the supermarket. You actually think a little bit like, well, actually, why I don't go and pedal 4 kilometers or even 10 minutes and go get it from a different place, instead of like a shelf with all these bright lights and all these
plastic containers.
Exactly. So that would be more the like my wish to change.
And what have you seen as the best way to do that? Bring people here, like with food, like reconnection to nature is a big theme, and there are many ways. What have you seen?
So what we have done a lot, well, there is always a limited amount of people that you can inspire, like unless you do this every day with hundreds of people. But I think, like, for example, we have knocked some companies' doors and tell them like, hey, we have this experience, or like this methodology that we would like to offer you, to bring your team to do something outdoors, to understand how food is grown, how relatively in a small amount of land you can feed a big community, and you can just work and do something with your hands. And people love this. Like we have had 2 big companies. They came with 80 people. And imagine 80 people where we are.
Yeah. It's people that are listening. It's I still remember, it's an acre. It's not there's not a lot of space. There's a lot of space, but it's like 80 people is
Yeah, so they came for 3 hours. It was great because they were all like really like green hands. So they wanted to do everything. So we did the work of like 2 weeks in 3 hours with them. So it was like really organization. We divide them in 5 groups. We had 2 people in each group, just like following, saying, okay, we have to prune, we have to weed, we have to, and it's just really great to see the amount of work that can be done when people just work together. And for them, it was 3 hours, but like if you put 3 hours, 80 people, it's 240 hours of work.
And it's a workout, and it's like compare that to people that are indoors moving machines and not getting anywhere. And I guess as a sort of final question, looking back at these years, 2-part question: what's the biggest lesson, and what would you have done differently? What would you love to know, like 5-6 years ago, that would have steered you to like? Let's start with the biggest lesson. Maybe it's the same for those of us.
Biggest lesson, it's control less. You know, like it's also something that I see that we want to know, we want to, like, this is the way I want to do, so this is the outcome that I kind of expect. And just like live it. It's you live more chill. You still do what you believe, what you are, your dreams, and you know the philosophy, but it's just. I think that is like the biggest
specific example. You would have loved to control less.
The slugs this year.
The slugs are yeah.
So, you know, like as I mentioned before, we lost 180 meters of carrots twice, and then we were going for the 3rd time, and we were like, no, actually, let's go for something else. Let's put the turnips. Let's put onions, something that they don't like to eat. We were almost going for the 3rd 180 meters of carrots because of we want to have carrots.
And then I just want you to wrap it up. What would you have done different? What would you have loved to know? What would you have done differently now looking back at 6 years, 7 years? A lot of things, but if you had to pick one.
Drainage. Yeah, I think like understanding where you're going to start a project geographically is crucial for this. Like if you're going to, let's say, go to South Spain, collect water.
Yeah.
If you're in here in the Netherlands, too much water, put drainage. So it's like, and we didn't do anything of that. So we had to learn when like we had the challenge, and it's like, okay, how can we actually going to solve this?
Because the first year you didn't have drainage.
No, they haven't even answered.
Flooded everywhere.
Yeah, so like increasing biodiversity or organic matter and everything, like soil life have helped us a lot. But if we didn't install the drainage that we have installed already, I think it would have been almost impossible. Right. So it's like study really your place where you're going to do, where you're going to start, you know, the conditions, and think on that, on how you want to implement, or like the steps you need in order to improve already from the very beginning. That I would say
That's a perfect lesson. I want to thank you so much for the work you do, but also allowing us to be here, experiment with audio, video, and all of that, and giving us a great tour. Finally, because we met a while back in Amsterdam, actually at a conference.
Yes.
Then we had a phone call. I mean, through Alice, definitely shout out to Alice who got us in touch. And then Brussels, and then finally meeting here in person, seeing the farm. So congrats, and very impressive. And thank you so much for sharing and being so open.
No, of course. No, thank you for coming. I'm like, if people are here in Amsterdam, just come by. It's a great
All the
place to
links.
be.
We'll put the links below. Come and visit.
And then, yeah, it's just go.
Okay.
Thank you.